If you live in the Catawba Valley of North Carolina, or if you're thinking about moving to the area in the near future, and you've ever wondered what the real estate market is actually doing, not nationally, but right here locally, stay tuned. The Catawba River in North Carolina originates in McDowell County, then flows gently through the hills of Burke, Caldwell, Catawba, and Alexander counties. Around here, this region is simply known as the Catawba Valley, and in my opinion, there's no better place to live. We're at the base of the Appalachian Mountains, we're just a short trip to the beach, and we get to experience all 4 seasons in full most of the time. My name is Chris Garner with Horizon Realty Associates in Morganton, North Carolina. I grew up in this area, I raised my kids in this area, and I own a few different businesses in this area. The goal of this video is to make sense of our local real estate market using real data and real outcomes without any hype or any headlines. We're going to look at what the numbers are showing across the area I know best, which is Burke, Caldwell, Catawba, and McDowell counties. And over time, I'll also walk through how individual homes respond to the market as the conditions change. This isn't about predictions or hot takes, it's about understanding direction, trends, and what the data is trying to tell us. One of the things I hear most often is that people are curious about the state of the market, but the data can be hard to access, confusing to interpret, or completely contradictory depending on where you look. This is meant to be a reliable local reference point, something you can check in on to understand where the market has been, where it is now, and where that may be going forward. It's for homeowners, buyers, investors, and anyone who just wants a clearer picture of what's happening in the Catawba Valley real estate market. Let's start with a high-level snapshot of 2025. We're filming this the very 1st of January 2026, so this is the previous year. The first thing I want to look at is median sales price this past year across the area. Median price is the number right in the middle where half of the houses sold for more and half of the houses sold for less. This is different than average sales price, but the median will give us the best data because it isn't skewed by really high or really low outliers. As is typical around here, median sales price varied by county. You can see that Catawba County, which has the larger town of Hickory, had the highest median at $315,000. McDowell, which has some spillover from Asheville and Black Mountain, came in at just under $300,000. Burke County, which lies in the middle of all these counties and is where I call home, was $270,000. And Caldwell, which saw a lot of industrial decline in the early 2000s, but since has some of the best amenities around, came in at a median of $267,000. These are up from 2024, except for McDowell, who stayed exactly the same pretty much. Catawba was up about 1.5% from $310,000. Burke was up nearly 4% from $260,000. And Caldwell made a big jump, up nearly 5% from $255,000. If you live here, you know pricing strength isn't uniform across this region, and it never really has been. Each county behaves a little differently, and that matters when we start talking about buying and selling strategy. Now let's look at inventory. Inventory is an important context clue in any market. It's a great snapshot of supply and demand. Months of inventory is essentially a projection of how many months it would take to sell a home that are currently listed on the market. 4 months and below signals a strong seller's market. Above 6 months signals a buyer's market. Throughout 2025, months of inventory across the region hovered mostly between 5 and 6 months. That's important because it suggests a market that's closer to balance than what we saw a few years ago. It's no longer a situation where almost everything sells immediately, but it's also not a market where nothing is moving at all. Average days on market tightened a bit through the middle of the year, dipping into the mid-40s before drifting back into the mid to upper 50-day range toward the end of 2025. The spring and summer months always tend to have a little higher activity. That tells us that buyer urgency exists, but it's selective. Homes that align well with current buyer expectations tend to move more quickly, while others take more time. It also tells us that sellers may want to look very closely at comparable sales before landing on a listing price. One of the clearest signals in the data comes from comparing median list prices to median close prices. Throughout much of 2025, there was a noticeable gap between where homes entered the market and where they ultimately closed. We've seen a lot of price reductions lately, which a lot of us agents like to positively spin as price improvements, but most homes are selling for less than their original list price. That gap doesn't mean anything went wrong. It just tells us that seller expectations and buyer behavior weren't necessarily aligned right out of the gate. When you step back and look at all this together, a few themes start to emerge. Buyer behavior has changed compared to what many people remember from 2021 and 2022. Migration patterns have slowed, interest rates and affordability play a bigger role, and buyers are more deliberate with their choices. What that means in practice is that early pricing matters more than ever. Homes tend to get the most attention and the strongest feedback right when they first hit the market. When pricing and buyer expectations are aligned early, homes often move more efficiently. When there's friction early on, adjustments may be needed later as the market responds. None of this is about fault or blame. It's simply how a more balanced market communicates. Now, in future episodes of the show, I'll start walking through real examples of specific homes in our area, looking at how they entered the market, how buyer activity responded over time, and where they ultimately landed when they closed. The goal isn't to critique anybody's decisions, but to better understand patterns and outcomes so that we can all be better informed. I'll be sharing these updates regularly as meaningful data becomes available. If you're interested in understanding the real estate market here in the Catawba Valley with a little more clarity and a lot less noise, I'm glad you're here. Be sure to pop that like button and that subscribe button. And if you have any questions about buying or selling a home in the Catawba Valley area of North Carolina, comment below or feel free to send me an email at realtychrisgarner@gmail.com. This is Chris with Horizon Realty Associates, and I appreciate you watching.